What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today's video is about this weird paradox that I'm not sure if is unique to millennials or not, but it's the paradox of an entry-level position requiring previous experience. Right, like that's like asking a 14-year-old applying to McDonald's to have already worked at Burger King. You know what I mean? Like that, it doesn't make sense for that job, so why does it make sense for some other ones? Especially when these are the kinds of jobs that people could theoretically make a career out of. Why are we making it that difficult? Why is that a thing that society's done? And like I said, I don't know if it's specifically unique to millennials, but I do know that it's becoming an increasingly popular topic of conversation amongst people entering the workforce. That a lot of positions now seem to need you to have some previous experience within their specific thing they want. And now I get it, right? You don't want just a random walking in and being like, I'm your GP today. Not what I'm talking about. But something like business admin or the sorts of jobs where you should get training on the job. Like it doesn't make sense. And this is also different with like the construction industry and stuff, because they have like apprenticeships and stuff that you can do while you're still in school. So that's an entirely different topic of conversation as well. So there is, there are some jobs where it's like, understandable, I get it, you need prior experience, you need to have the knowledge first, got it. And then there's other ones where it's like, you can easily just do this instead of finishing high school and you're good, it's fine. We're talking about these jobs in the middle here. And now normally for these sorts of videos, I'd have a link in the description where you can like click on it and read an article about the topic. My phone is turned off. My Google search for it is, how do millennials get work experience for entry-level positions when those same jobs need previous experience? And the top hits that have come up are things like older millennials made it into management, now they're leaving, how to sell yourself when you don't have the exact experience required, should you still apply for a job if you don't have enough experience? That's probably the closest we're going to come. The PDF of Millennial at Work, Reshaping the Workplace. A Forbes article, Millennials are struggling to get jobs, here's why and what to do. It talks about like the weird oxymoronic positions that millennials put themselves in when they've got a job. It's not what we're talking about. Millennials, the job hopping generation. Bro, we're just trying to get some work experience so we can actually go for the job we want. And then every job we go to is like, where do you see yourself with us in 5 years? Not here. I only need 2 years experience in this industry before I can go and get the job I want. That entry-level position just needs me to have 2 years prior experience. Why is this? And yeah, there's even one here from BBC, the real reason new graduates can't get hired. Like, Google, and apparently the internet, does not have an answer to this question, which is a really interesting thing. Like, I've seen this question posted on social media an innumerable amount of times, with different wording sometimes, but generally pretty close to the wording that I used in my Google search. And there's no like top hit, here you go, here is an article on this topic, which means that I don't really have an answer, I guess. There's no like resolution in this video, so if you were clicking on this video hoping for an answer of like how to beat this weird thing the system has in place, I'm sorry, clicked on the wrong video. Google does not have the answers, and since Google owns YouTube, neither does YouTube, at least not on this channel. But it does mean that I can give my own experience on this sort of thing. And obviously my experience does not, and therefore should not, be taken as representative of an entire generation's, nor should it be taken as, you know, everybody between the ages of, 21 and 35 in Australia, sort of thing. Like, my experience is my own personal, individual experience, and there are nearly 8 billion people on the planet now. You're gonna have had a different experience to me. Having said that, some of the elements that I will tell you in my little story time now may be relatable. And through that, I hope you're able to sort of pick up what worked for me and be able to adapt it using the parts that you found relatable to help yourself overcome this issue if you're struggling with it, which if you clicked on this video, I'm assuming you do. So, without further ado, so my first job, like, ever, was like most people's, I think. During high school, I was 15 at the time, and I was working as a, like, I'm getting the hiccups now, and I don't know why. No, I was working as a, we'll go customer service representative, because I never actually know the titles that they give to these positions when you're in high school. But I served customers, essentially, at a pizza shop, right? And you can call it Pizza Planet if you want. It doesn't really change the facts of, I served customers, I entered phones, I did all like the dough prep and stuff, and later into my employment there, I progressed on to actually being on the dispatch where they cut the pizzas. That was my job. And then, sort of around the end of, and that was sort of early 2010, by about late 2011, potentially early 2012, I had left because I'd been hired under one particular manager, was there for a couple of months. They then had sold to another, to other people, and left. So I was now working for these people, and they'd sort of just dealt with the workers that were already there so they could just move in and start making money straight away. Makes sense from a business perspective. These people already have the experience, keep them on, why not? But one of them had this idea of, but we'll start hiring our own people, and the further, the more people we hire that get trained under us and do things the way we want them to do it, the more we'll just be absolute assholes to the people already working for us, get them to leave, and then no one will have more experience than we do. So no one will be able to question why we're doing things the way we're doing it. And then they changed it from being a pizza planet to it being I don't know, pizza something else. Right. They changed franchises, is basically what I'm trying to get at. But yeah, so that was my experience with my first employer. I can get further into the actual nitty-gritty of that particular thing, but that honestly is its own story for another time. If you want to see it, hit the subscribe button. I will make it at some point. It is on my list of, like, these are story times that you can tell. So it is coming, I promise you. Anyway, that was my first job. After I'd left, I sort of more focused on my HSE studies. Did that. Didn't really want to go to, originally I was like, yeah, I'll go to university and I'll study this and I'll do that for a job and blah, blah, blah. And then, before I did that though, I wanted to have like a gap year, do some traveling, I'm young, I want to see the world, let's do it. 2013, 3 months in Italy, that was enough. I tasted what freedom was like, what it was like to, and even, it's stupid, because even though I was in Italy, I was still going to school, but it didn't feel like school, because even though I'd learned Italian for 6 years, it's not like European countries where you can learn the language and then speak to all of your friends in it, because you can take a weekend vacation anytime you like to England, where they speak that as the native language. No, this is Australia, where the only native language is English, and the amount of people that can speak Italian is basically whoever's in your class and whichever other friends you know from the other school nearby that happen to be learning the same language. Which for me amounted to 2 other people, aside from my teacher. One of those was my best friend during high school. We had every other class together, so when we weren't complaining about our maths teacher, we were talking about ancient history, or we were discussing our drama project, which we were doing together, or we were discussing. The point is, Italian wasn't high on the practicing in everyday life thing. So when I went to Italy and they're teaching all of the classes in Italian, I just basically got to sit there and draw. I'm going to be completely honest. I went, I attended, I satisfied that one requirement. But other than like art class and PE, didn't really have to pay that much attention until all of a sudden the entire class is turning to me, because little did I know, we're now studying English. Because they teach English in Italian over there. And that's the same in any European country. They teach you English without actually speaking English. It's really weird to be just sitting there doing some anime doodles, trying to perfect your artistic style, and then all of a sudden just, oh, we're learning English right now. Okay. Hello. Hi. There's so many ways to greet somebody. Like, yeah. So I'd had that little taste of freedom, is basically the long and short of that. And so when I came back, I was like, no, uni's not for me. Which is funny now, because next year is my 10-year reunion, and I'm hoping to start uni. It's afters, so it's completely different, but I'd still be studying a bachelor's, which is kind of funny. It's kind of funny. So yeah, that's, yeah. But anyway, I decided at the time that uni wasn't for me, and then I was gonna find work, earn myself some money, and just sort of, at the time, with the resources I had available to me, just try and make some films in my spare time. Try and make something that I could enter into some film festivals, so I could, you know, make some industry connections on my own and try and like find a backdoor sort of thing to the industry. Obviously the plan didn't go that well because the resources available to me were shit, and so now we're finally just trying the front door, see if that's actually unlocked. Hopefully it's not only unlocked but wide open. So yeah, so then my second job was I worked in the palletizing section of so like the packaging part right at the end of all of the processing. So the palletizing part of an abattoir, a meatworks. And the only reason it was that was because at the time, living in Inverell, that was the biggest employer and basically the surest way to get a full-time job at the time. I'm now working 20 hours a week and making about the same amount of money per fortnight that I was making per week there, which just means that if I was working the same amount of hours, I'd be making the same amount of money. And I am by no means busting my ass as hard as I was, but don't tell my boss that. No, it was more because like the meatworks had like a, here you go, put this 25 kilo box on that pallet and then come back for another one. We need to do like 100 of these today. And also, while you're doing that one, there's 6 other pallets going on, so you need to make sure that they're all stacked correctly. And, you know, when he goes to have his break before you do, you need to step up and do that position of strapping the box instead. A whole bunch of stuff, right? You get the picture. So yeah, that was fun. Gave me some back issues that I have to this day. And I was there for about 18 months. And then I moved in to here. Since I've been down here, I worked at the Kmart, I've worked at McDonald's, I've worked at a separate pizza place. Funnily enough, the franchise that my original jobs changed to now. I did a term working in a school as a technical support officer, so working with computers, and I'm now working in a hospitality retail position. But there's still the kinds of jobs where if I were to be working after 4 o'clock on a weekday, I would potentially be sharing my shift with a 15-year-old. I'm 27. So I'm still in these like entry-level positions that aren't giving me experience to get into something that I can actually make a career out of. I'm doing a job. You know, like I have a job, I'm doing a job. But I don't, in my own, like I have an occupation. If I break it down like this, I have an occupation, but I don't necessarily have a career. I mean, you could look at my CV and be like, hospitality and retail, that's like the industry that you work in. Like, yeah, but during the last 10 years, I've also started but not completed a travel business course, a photography course, a personal training course. I've gotten my RSA and my RCG as part of a hospitality course, solely so I could get more shifts back when I was working at McDonald's for the cafe section, because despite asking for it, you know, nicely, requesting that I be trained in a new area so I can get more shifts, I was not given that opportunity, so I essentially forced their hand, which, depending on your circumstances, I either do or don't recommend. It really depends on your circumstances. If you don't feel like your boss is going to take kindly to you forcing their hand, maybe don't do that. But if your boss is just sort of like, oh no, I just want people that can do the job, like I don't really have time to train anybody, work, but just take the days you've got to go to class off and say that you'll make it up. You know, and like, I don't know, if you have the ability to do the overnight shifts sort of thing. That's basically what I did. Yeah, the overnight shifts. Doing those was how I found out I had epilepsy. Fun times. I've also in that time applied no less than 12, easily no less than 12 times to work at Sanity because of my passion for film. I've applied at least twice to Cotton On, about a half dozen times to the cinema, probably, and to a slightly lesser degree, an equal amount of times as Sanity to ED Games, being that I'm a gamer myself. These have all come up fruitless. So and I'm now having to apply for jobs while waiting to hear back about whether or not I'm actually going to AFTRS next year or not. While also working, I've now also got to apply for jobs to keep my Centrelink payment coming in, which is rough. It really is. But I don't quite make enough per week to warrant just not worrying about that and having them cut my payment off. I do still get some money from Centrelink, so we do what we gotta do. And like even right now, I have a friend in Sydney telling me what's hiring in Sydney. I don't yet know if I'm going next year, so there's no point me applying for positions down there. I'm not going to be able to be there to do the job. There's also, you know, like the whole point of the move would be to study, so I get a job to help support that. If I'm not going to need to move there, there's no point me getting a job there, because it's honestly much cheaper to pay rent here. By a considerable amount, I might add. So yeah, no. I mean, if I'd been able to complete them, I'd be able to get work in travel agencies, which would be really cool. I'd be able to get work in gyms. I'd be able to get work as a photographer. But what I have found in doing these courses, because all of them, the one thing that they all had in common is that they're all online courses, or they had an online component. I learned better face-to-face interacting. Like I learn better in that classroom environment, which means that on-campus uni study really is the only way I'm going to be able to get around this barrier. You might not have that issue. For you, doing an online course at your own pace while you're working, maybe even like there's a girl at the gym that I go to that is currently, while she's working at the gym, doing her PT studies. So if you're in a similar position to that, you could be earning your income while studying online, and if that works for you, then great, do that. But if you're like me, you have to learn in a classroom environment, and you've tried everything to make anything work, maybe it's worth considering, like, yeah, student debts are gonna be annoying until you pay them off, but being able to have a full-time job that you genuinely enjoy is gonna make you feel so much better. And then the fact that you'll have full-time work will just make being able to pay those debts off a lot easier than it would be doing your casual part-time job that you're doing while you're studying. So I guess at the end of the day, for me, the moral of the story is stick with your education. But that, like I said, is not necessarily the moral everyone is going to take away. I might have just told my whole story and you're just sitting there being like, oh, wow, like, complain louder, why don't you? And that's fine, you're welcome to your opinion, because obviously you have a different experience than I do, and that's completely fine. I'm not going to invalidate your experience, but I'm just sharing with you mine in the hopes that something in there helps you out. And with that, that's the end of this video. If you are new here, hello, welcome. Please hit the subscribe button wherever it is on your device, and while you're there, ring that notification bell as well if you'd like to stay up to date with when I upload new videos. If you enjoyed this one, give it a big old thumbs up, and until next time guys, keep your head screwed on.